Good evening, everyone. Okay, so I've never done a video quite like this, so I'm hoping you will be able to see me as I read from a different window. But thanks for joining me. As you know, I am stupid, simple, and slow, and it takes me a long time to grasp information. So, something that I have not been able to really understand uh, or can't get past or put to bed and move on to something else is space exploration. I don't get it. I'm not understanding the ROI. I don't understand the return on investment. Not just financial, but significant financial investment. Um, I'm not understanding what we're getting out of it when it's been going on for 60 years, well, longer than that, 70 years. Um, I'm just not understanding what we're taking away from this program, the government-funded program of NASA. There's private entities now. There's other foreign governments investing in it. It's a global thing, and I'm not clear on what we're getting out of it. So I'm hoping one of you very intelligent people can explain it to me, because I'm not there. I'm not with you. I don't get it. I would love to understand it. I would love to understand the purpose. I would love to understand the return that we're getting from it, other than just fulfilling a portion of people's curiosity. I just don't think being curious is a very good reason to be funding these programs. Um, and I do know, and I'm going to read something here for you, that there is some return on investment as far as technology is concerned. I'm very aware of that. I see that. When you get this amount of funding, and you get this many bright, intelligent people in a room, or in multiple rooms and multiple facilities, coming up with, just brainstorming, talking about ideas, engineers, scientists. Obviously, there will be some good come out of that, whether that be um, products or, like I said, new technology. I understand that there is some benefit to this. I'm just wondering if the cost associated with it is relative, the cost to the American people, the cost to the taxpayer, essentially, because, you know, there is no such thing as government funded. Everything's taxpayer funded. So, as a taxpayer, I'm curious as to, is this a really good use of taxpayer money? Um, and now we're hearing things about a space force. Space force. So here we are on planet Earth talking about defunding police on the planet, while simultaneously talking about funding police for space. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So, um, is this idea 70 years behind? When it comes to, are we going to be the defunding Space Force? 50, 60 years from now, defunding Space Force because there's Space Force brutality. You understand what I'm going with this? So, um, anyway, that's probably a little too sarcastic, but you understand what I'm saying here. Like, what's the purpose of these space programs? What are we learning? I mean, one of the bigger questions here is are we trying to find alternate, um, something inhabitable for human beings? Is that really what this is about? Is it really about finding something inhabitable for human beings? Because they're talking about sending astronauts to Mars. We've been to the moon, and apparently that we can't, live on the moon, which I'm not understanding that exactly. Um, Again, I'm not very smart, so somebody can explain that to me. So now we're thinking about maybe Mars or another planet, or this doesn't make any sense. Like, we don't entirely understand Earth. We don't entirely understand this. There's places on Earth we haven't been. There's jungles too deep and thick that we can't get to. We've only been about, make sure I do this number right, about 12 miles deep into the surface of the planet. We've only been 12 miles deep into the surface of the planet. We haven't been to the bottom of the ocean. We don't even know what's, we have been to portions of the bottom of the ocean, but we haven't been to all of it. There's so much undiscovered area in this on this planet. There's so many things we don't know, things we don't understand. Um, we can't stop wildfires, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes. We can't even manage our own planet. Yet we spend billions and billions and billions of dollars a year trying to inhibit other planets. I mean, this line of thinking to me is just so bizarre. I can't get my head around it. And I pose this question um, to you or anyone: if the purpose of this is that sort of subconsciously we understand that human beings are destroying this planet, so we have to be thinking long term and finding another place to live, my question to you is this: um, what makes us so sure we're on the right path? What makes us so certain that another planet is the answer? That's what I'm not understanding, is if we don't know how to manage and handle the planet that we're on, or save the planet that we're on, what makes you think that we're going to be able to start from scratch on another planet and do better there? That logic doesn't make any sense. Not to mention, um, if the planet essentially is the problem, human beings destroying the planet, if that's essentially the problem, why are we trying to find another one when we should be investing our time and energy and resources into trying to figure out how to live without a planet? Does that make sense? Should we be building, should we launch a spaceship that is in space and then slowly build onto it, like you build a home and then you add on to it, you do an addition? Like, should we be trying to invest technology and resources and uh, you know science and technology into living without a planet? If the planet deteriorating is the problem, what makes us think that we'll be able to get to another planet that's more perfect than this one that's in the Goldilocks zone? Why do we think we can go to another planet and just inhibit it? Doesn't make any sense. Why are we not investing in living without a planet? That makes more sense to me anyway. Um, if Earth being weak is the problem, then why are we trying to find another planet? I think we're going to find a stronger planet. Anyway, the whole thing just doesn't make any sense to me. The budget doesn't make sense. The intent doesn't make sense. The return on investment doesn't make sense. And again, I'm stupid, simple, and slow. I'm behind the times. I'm not a smart guy. So I just want to read to you a couple things. And I try my best to read between the lines, and that's probably not fair to whoever writes this because their intent is to inform you. But I ask, when I read something or I hear something, my mind immediately says, yes, but why? So when I'm watching the news, whether it's CNN or Fox or whoever, it's when I receive information, it's yes, but why? Okay, I had this information, but why? What is this information? What does this mean? Um, so when I look at NASA, it's just the easiest. There's space exploration in the private sector now, and I'll get a little bit to that in a second. But NASA obviously is sort of the um, global pinnacle of space exploration based on video evidence, I guess. I really hate using that because I think the video evidence is weak, um, but it's widely accepted as genuine, so we'll just roll with it. But yeah, so the inception of NASA was in 1958, so that says 61 years ago. Um, but I want to read this to you, and like I said, I want to try to read between the lines and ask some questions because I really want to understand the ROI, the purpose, the reasoning, and what we're getting from this, because it feels like we could use our resources better. Um, and I'll explain that, and hopefully somebody can explain to me where we are with this space exploration, because I'm not understanding. I'm just not understanding. So uh, when I originally looked this up, what I was trying to find was how much uh, the budget is for NASA, and there is a Wikipedia page um, outlining or specifically for the budget of NASA, which I find interesting that um, so many people are curious about this and search for it. That there actually had to be a Wikipedia page set up to defend NASA's budget. If NASA is so important, you shouldn't have to defend it. People shouldn't be that curious as to what they're getting for their money. You know what I mean? Um, it's bizarre to me. So just the fact that there is a Wikipedia page defending NASA's budget, and when I say defending, you'll see what I mean, because this is to me, outright defense of it. It's not just an explanation of it; it's defense of it, and that's alarming to me. That when you have to defend a budget of $20 billion a year, $20 billion is a very significant amount of money. So. Um, I find it very bizarre that they have to defend this budget with with information like this. So let's get into it. I'm going to read some of it to you. Budget of NASA. Excuse me. As a federal agency, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, receives its funding from the annual federal budget passed by the United States Congress. The following charts detail the amount of federal funding allotted to NASA each year over its history to pursue programs in aeronautics research, robotic spaceflight, technology development, and human space exploration programs. Okay, so um, this video is going to get really long because I'm going to pick this apart. But again, to pursue programs in aeronautics research. Here's the deal. Aeronautics research. It is not the federal government's responsibility to research aeronautics with taxpayer money. The federal government doesn't provide. The federal government doesn't provide um, flights or private flights for the American public. So why are taxpayers paying for technology that's just going to be handed over to private corporations for profit? Why are we paying for that? Why are these airlines not paying for their own technology? Why are the American taxpayers paying the R&D cost of American Airlines? Doesn't make any sense. Why are we paying for that? They should be paying for their own R&D. Okay, robotic space flight. Again, what's the ROI on robotic space flight? Technology development. I'd love to hear more about the technology coming out of NASA to find out exactly what does that mean, technology development. And then human space exploration programs. Again, what's the purpose of this? What's the ROI of this? What are we getting out of all this science that they keep beating us over the head with? Because that's what they say. It's scientific research, scientific research, scientific research. Okay, yield us some results. Show us what this means. Show us what we're getting for our money here. And I'm not seeing it. Maybe I don't pay close enough attention to NASA's website. I do see a lot of their images and pictures and videos and stuff. But again, images and pictures and videos do us no good. Where's the actual technology? Okay, so there's some more information here. We'll get to that. But you have to understand, whenever they use very vague terms like we're doing scientific research, where we specialize in technology development. Okay, what? I need some meat on the bone. You're just giving us the bone. Where's the meat? Okay, so here we go. This video is going to be long. Sorry, guys. I know I'm a boring. I get long-winded. Okay, annual budget, and you can go follow along with this and sort of see what I'm saying here, because there's graphs, there's all sorts of other information I'm not reading from here. One of the main things you'll notice here whenever they do this little Wikipedia does their defense of NASA is the talking point is the percentage of the annual federal budget. I don't understand why that's their angle. Oh, well, it's a smaller percentage of the annual budget than it used to be, so it's no big deal, even though it's significantly more money. You know, it doesn't make sense that that's the talking point. The talking point is, well, it's the percentage of the annual budget so insignificant it shouldn't matter to you. When really, in reality, to me, that's even more frightening, because that means that that the federal budget's gone up that much. That's frightening to me that the federal budget's increased to such a great degree, that the money being given to NASA is such a small percentage of it. That's frightening to me that the government is receiving that much money from the American people and small businesses. And I say small businesses deliberately because the middle class and the small businesses pay all the taxes in this country, because we know corporations don't pay taxes, and we know middle class pays the majority of taxes in this country. That's just the reality of it. Okay. Okay. So I'm getting sidetracked. Sorry. So annual budget. NASA's budget for fiscal year 2020 is 22.6 billion. That's a very significant amount of money. Very significant amount of money. And I know as people, we hear these numbers all the time. These numbers get crazy. We hear them on TV talking about corporations in billions and billions and billions. We're numb to this. We're desensitized to these numbers and these figures. $1 billion is more money than you could even ever get your head around. Remember, if someone gave you $1 million today, that's the most significant amount of money still to this day. A million. People always talk about, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. That is the landmark of wealth to the average person. Even though most people know $1 million won't last you long, $1 million is what people want, because that's how poor the average person is. $1 million is a very significant amount of money. So you can't even get your head around $22.6 million, but you're so numb and you're so desensitized to these figures, you think that's not a big deal. That's a very big deal. $22.6 billion is astronomical. Let me get my calculator real quick. I'll try not to slow this down too much, but $22.6 billion, that's about $62 million a day. So think about that for a second. You want $1 million, and the American taxpayers are giving $62 million a day. That's 7 days a week. If you want to do it 5 days a week, because I don't know if NASA works weekends. I know that's not fair, but what is that? 365 divided by 104 to get weekends out of there. So 261 days in the year. So 261 working days. So if you're going to go Monday through Friday, that's $86.5 million a day. So the American taxpayers are giving $86 million a day to NASA. Think about how significant amount of money that is. $86 million a day to this organization, okay? It's a lot. That's a very significant amount of money. Again, you can't even get your mind around how much money that is. You've been desensitized to it, but think about $86 million a day to this organization, okay? For aeronautics research. I mean, just think of it this way. How much advancement has there been in aeronautics in the past 50 years? I mean, commercial planes have been commercial planes. I mean, I understand that there's new technology as far as the fuselage and the cockpit, and the engine's a little bit more efficient. And I mean, I understand all that. But again, to the tune of $86 million a day, have there been that many advancements in technology and aeronautics coming out of NASA? It's bizarre to me. It's so much money. People can't even get their head around it. So we'll keep going here. The budget's $22.6 billion. It represents 0.48% of the $4.7 trillion the United States planned to spend in the fiscal year. So again, that's the very first talking point it wants to plant the seed in your head. It represents 0.48% of the $4.7 trillion. It's already wanting you to think this is a small amount. This is so insignificant. It's not a big deal. It's 0.48% of the annual budget. That's frightening to me. That much money is such a small percentage of what they're actually spending. And that's their talking point. That's their talking point. It's just an insignificant amount of money. No, that's not. $86 million a day is not an insignificant amount of money. That just tells you how wasteful the federal government is on their spending. That they're collecting $4.7 trillion and 0.48% of it's $86 million a day, and it's just no big deal. That's bizarre thinking to me. That's unusual thinking to me. Okay? So their defense is it's just a small portion of the $4.7 trillion that they're spending, so it's really just no big deal. Shouldn't be a big deal. It's not a big deal to them, so it shouldn't be a big deal to you. I disagree. I disagree. Um, since its inception, the United States has spent nearly 650 billion in nominal dollars on NASA. When in, excuse me, when adjusted for inflation via the GDP deflator index, the cumulative figure is closer to 1.17 trillion, an average of 19 billion per year over its entire history. So essentially, since its inception, it's averaged about $19 billion a year since 1958 or 9, I think is what it said. Okay, so last year, or I'm sorry, this year, 2020, it's 22.6 billion, but it's saying over the course of its life, it was $19 billion per year. Okay, adjusted for inflation on average. So obviously, in 1960, the budget wasn't $19 billion, but adjusted for inflation, it's essentially what it was. Okay, so here we go. Where are we? So again, it's a very significant amount of money, averaging $19 billion a year. And remember, what have we gotten out of NASA over that period of time? $1.17 trillion. Again, this is an amount of money that is so significant you can't even fathom. 1.17 trillion is 1,000 billion. It's 1,000 billion. 1,000 billion is 1.17 trillion. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. 1,000 billion. For what? What have we got out of it? Some pictures from Mars, some pictures from the moon. I mean, is your life $1.17 trillion better because of NASA? I mean, seriously, you need to walk through this process in your head and ask yourself, is this a good use of your tax dollars? Is this where you want your money going? This is insane. So the next thing here is a graph, or a chart, not a graph, of spending by year and how much money it actually was versus how much it was for the percentage of the budget at the time. And again, they're shoving this percentage of budget down your throat because they want you to feel like it's an insignificant compared to what's going on. And again, that is the most alarming portion of this, is how insignificant this huge amount of money is. That's what you need to be understanding about this, okay? That should freak you out, that this amount of money is such a small percentage, okay? Next here is cost of Apollo program. NASA's budget peaked 1964 through 66 when it consumed roughly 4% of all federal spending. The agency was building up to the first moon landing, and the Apollo program was a top national priority, consuming more than half of NASA's budget and driving NASA's workforce to more than 34,000 employees and 375,000 contractors from industry and academia. In 1973, NASA submitted congressional testimony reporting the total cost of Project Apollo was $25.4 billion, about $153 billion in 2018 dollars. So NASA told us that the Apollo program cost $25.4 billion, and adjusted for inflation in 2018, that's about $153 billion. Again, you want to be a millionaire, and they spent $153 billion on the Apollo program. $153 billion, a number. You think of it this way: during the course of your lifetime, if you make average income and you start, let's say you start at 18 and you work until you're 65, and you start at an average job and you work your way up over time, raises, promotions, yada yada, you'll make about $2 to $2.5 million. An average person. Half of you watching this are above average, half of you are below average, but the average person will make about $2.5 million in their lifetime. And the Apollo program cost $153 billion. So it's going to take you 50 years to make $2.5 million. The Apollo program cost $153 billion. And what'd you get out of it? What did we get out of it? This is bizarre. Okay. On to the next one. Economic impact of NASA funding. And this is where things get extremely interesting for me. And I'm going to have to slow down. I say slow down. I'm already slow. But and really I start to question this. This is where I start to really question their defense of this funding. Oh man, okay, hold on. Let me pull this to the side real quick. Okay. Let's see where we at. All right. Economic impact of NASA funding. So what they're about to explain is how important NASA is and the economic impact of funding NASA, what giving them money does to the economy. And this is interesting. Okay, so here we go. A November 1971 study of NASA released by, now again, this is a long time ago, so I'm surprised that they're using data that's this old. But let's just roll with it, okay? Because this is their stance on NASA funding. A 1971 study of NASA released by MRI Global, formerly Midwest Research Institute of Kansas City, Missouri, concluded that, quote, the $25 billion in 1958 dollars spent on civilian space research and development during the 1958 through 1969 period has returned $52.5 billion through 1971 and will continue to produce payoffs through 1987, in which time the total payoff will have been $181 billion. The discounted rate of return for this investment will have been 33%. I'm hoping you picked up what I picked up right there. And let me go through that. A lot was said in those two sentences. And again, this is a quote from a study by MRI Global of Kansas City, Missouri, concluded. Okay, so this is a study of NASA's worthiness and their contribution to the American people and the economy here. This is so bizarre. So in 1971, they released this study. Quote, the $25 billion in 1958 dollars spent on civilian space research and development during 1958 through 69 period has returned $52.5 billion through 1971. So what that's telling you is the $25 billion that was invested as of 2 years after this 11-year time frame from 58 to 69, okay, this $25 billion investment has kicked a return of $52.5 billion by 1971. So this program has now paid for itself and doubled its money. It's doubled its money. It's paid for itself, and then it's made that much money. It went from $25 billion in the hole to making $52.5. So it should have paid the $25 million back and still had $27.5 million to work with as of 1971. And it will continue to produce payoffs through 1987. Okay, so they're saying this study ended in 69 and it's going to yield money through 87. As of 1971, it's already doubled its ROI, and it's going to continue to receive money from these programs and these R&Ds from 1980 through 1987. So for another 16 years after the study. So this ROI essentially paid for all the research. It doubled its money, and it's going to make more for 16 more years. That should be good news, right? NASA's taking U.S. tax dollars, taxpayer dollars, because there's no such thing as government funded. Everything's taxpayer funded. The government doesn't have money. The government has $0. Every dollar the government has is taxpayer dollars. It's taxpayer money. Okay? So the government took $25 billion from taxpayers, invested it in R&D, and that R&D yielded $52.5 billion in a short amount of time. And it will continue to pay off. So where's that money going is my question. If it yielded $52.5 billion, and again, it's been receiving $19 billion every year for all these other years. So if it's yielding profits, why are we still giving them money? If the research and development is yielding income by selling its technology or whatever the case is, however they're getting these returns, why are we still funding them? That doesn't make any sense. Why are we funding something that's making money? And not just making money once, but compounding that over years and decades. I mean, it says right there it's going to continue to yield for 16 more years after the study. So everything developed during this time is making money every year, okay? So it's making money every year. Well, these years it's making money, there's other research and development going on that those are going to make money also. So it's compounding year after year after year that these R&D products or technology that this program's yielding should be year after year, making money, making money, making money. That's what they're saying here, right? At which time the total payoff would have been $181 billion. So in 16 years, the total payoff is $181 billion. So if it's yielding this sort of money, why are taxpayer dollars still going to this? If this is making money, if this R&D is making money, somebody's got to spell it out to me. And like I said, there's still more R&D going on, and there's more products, and there's more technology year over year over year over year. So this is just a slice of the pie of the returns that are allegedly happening, yet taxpayers are still funding this. How is that possible? And if taxpayers are still funding this, where's all this money going? If this R&D is yielding so much, such hefty returns in such short periods of time, where's that money going? So are they spending the taxpayers' money and all these returns? That's very significant to me. Where's that money going? If this research and development is so valuable and it's returning this money, I mean, you're talking about a huge, significant amount of money. $181 billion over its life. And that's just what they developed up until 1969. Again, there was more technology developed after that. Where's the money going? If there's return on this investment, where's the returns going? And then to close the quote is the best thing I've ever heard. The absolute best thing I ever heard. And this is where it seals the deal for me that this is a defense piece where they're trying to defend the NASA budget. Okay? And I'm going to break it down for you as simple as I possibly can. This is from this study, and I quote, "The discounted rate of return for this investment will have been 33%. Excuse me? A 33% return? Why would anybody invest in anything else? Why would you put your money in the stock market? Why would you put your money in real estate? Invest in NASA. Invest in space exploration. Invest in NASA. You should pull all of your money out of the stock market today. Today, you should pull all your money out of the stock market and invest in NASA. A 33% return? A good return is 10%. Inflation's 3 to 4%. Most people say 3.5. Inflation is 3.5%. So if you're getting a 10% return, you're getting 6.5% on your money. That's good money. 33% return from NASA. Think about that. Let it sink in for a second. NASA's yielding a 33% return, and you're investing in the stock market. Ask yourself, how is this taxpayer funded entity yielding a 33% return, and we still subsidize them with over $20 billion a year? The coronavirus legislation that was just passed, in that legislation, they gave NASA more money. I think it was 100 million. Somebody check me on that. I think it was $100 million. But again, they gave them $100 million. For what? For what? We already know that's an insignificant amount of money to them. I mean, that's just okay. We just talked about how much they spend. 85 Monday through Friday. We're not going 7 days a week here. I know I probably should to make it fair, but again, even then, that's $61 million. So 7 days a week it's $61 million. 5 days a week it's 85 or $86 million. Okay, either way, this is a very significant amount of money here. And they gave him $100 million. So they gave him a day, not even 2 full days worth of operation, whether you use 86 million or 61 million. Not even 2 days worth of operation. I mean, it's insulting to the American people. This is insulting to the American people. $100 million. I want to go off on this coronavirus thing, but I'm not going to. $100 million that people could use in the economy. I mean, people really could use this money. Desperate people. Food, water. People need this money. Medicine, tests, whatever. $100 million. And they gave it to NASA. So NASA could operate for a day and a half. That should upset anybody. That should upset anyone. And I know somebody, again, somebody so much smarter than me, because I'm just a basement dweller. Somebody so much smarter than me is going to come out and say, oh, well, they were affected by the virus too, and they had bills to pay, and yada, yada. Again, if NASA just shuts down for the whole entire coronavirus, they should be saving money. Because the only thing they got to pay is their employees. All these other expenses, whether it's research and development, they don't have to pay for anything. Hey, just stop. We're going to put that on hold. Should be saving money. It should cost less money for NASA to be shut down. Isn't that how it works? It costs $61 million a day or $86 million a day to operate. We're going to shut down for a couple of months, so it should go down to almost zero, with the exception of payroll. If you just want to pay everybody to stay home, if that's the right thing to do and fair, pay everybody to stay home. But again, the cost should go down. You're giving these people $100 million for what? Okay, I got to get off that. I'll go forever. This is bizarre to me. I don't understand. Somebody really intelligent is going to explain this to me. Or maybe not somebody really intelligent. Maybe somebody really stupid is going to explain it to me. This makes no sense. The discounted rate of return for this investment will have been 33%. Why is anybody investing in anything except for NASA? I hate to be this way, but this is not information. Wikipedia is not giving you information here. This is propaganda. NASA's telling you, and you're believing it, that they're making a 33% return on their money, on our money. So you're telling me that they're spending the funding that the taxpayers are giving them, and they're spending their 33% returns? I mean, if they're spending $86 million a day and 33% returns, good night. Why would you invest in anything else? Why would you invest in anything else? I would pull my money out of everything and invest in NASA. And if people knew this, if this is real, if this is it, why doesn't the government take this public? Why is this not for everyone to see? Hey, just so you know, NASA is turning out 33% returns, and it has been since the 1950s. So just mail us a check with your social security number, and you can invest in NASA, and you can share in the returns. If it's knocking out 33% returns, let people send a check. Let people send their money in. mean, this is bizarre. I got to get going. There's two huge things after this. 33% returns. Just don't forget that. 33% returns, and you're not allowed to be in on it. Your money's going to go to pay to fund it, so somebody can get 33% returns, but you're not allowed to play in the big game. You're not in the club. You're not in the club. This is crazy, man. And I'm the dumbass. Again, this is probably so simple, but I don't get it. 33% return. Other statistics on NASA's economic impact may be found in the 1976 Chase Econometrics Associates Inc. reports and backed by 1989 Chapman Research Report, which examined 259 non-space applications of NASA technology during an 8-year period, 76 to 84, and found more than $21.6 billion in sales and benefits, 352,000 mostly skilled jobs created or saved, 355 million in federal corporate income taxes. Let's read that again. That was quite a mouthful. Other statistics on NASA's economic impact may be found in 1976 reports, backed by 1989 report, which examined 259 non-space application of NASA technology during an 8-year period. Okay, so basically what that's saying is they're backing up NASA's economic impact with this piece of information, saying that these two studies confirm 259 non-space applications from NASA, their research and development during an 8-year period. So in 8 years, they came up with essentially 259 non-space related applications. You know, any sort of technology or advancement in some particular area that's not related to space. But those 259 non-space related applications yielded $21.6 billion in sales and benefits, need to save the rest of that for later. 21.6 billion in sales and benefits. Okay, so it's saying over 8 years, from 76 to 84, 21.6 billion in sales and benefits. So this is basically saying products generated 21.6 billion in sales and benefits. And again, let me just go to the next one. I can't slow down every sentence. 352,000 mostly skilled jobs created or saved. 355 million in federal corporate income taxes. Okay, so basically what that's saying is that there is a economic footprint left by NASA. The things that they come up with generate billions of dollars in sales every year. It creates skilled jobs, and it brings in federal corporate income taxes, basically saying that if it wasn't for NASA, these things wouldn't exist. And that is categorically false. Okay, this is very, very misleading. You need to understand what this means here. They're basically trying to tell you that if NASA didn't exist, this economic footprint would be a vacuum, and that is incorrect. 100% patently false. They're trying to convince you that these intelligent people wouldn't find jobs elsewhere. Okay? Does that make sense? These people aren't just going to go home and do nothing. They're going to be available. They're going to be in the market, and other companies and other entities and other forms of government will hire them to do different jobs. So instead of having smart people chasing this space dream, they can work on actual valuable technology that affects us today, that helps us today. I mean, anything from, again, technology. Again, why is the federal government funding this? Why are private companies not funding this research? Why is the American taxpayer having to subsidize research that's being, again, it's technology that's being sold to companies for profit? Why is that not bothersome to you? We should not be paying for this. I don't want to anyway. I mean, these people can find jobs in other industries, energy. I mean, there's just so many other industries. These people are not just going to go home and have nothing to do anywhere ever. Like, they're going to find other jobs. They're going to be useful in other areas. They're going to stop chasing something that's doing us no good and start doing stuff that is going to help us right now. So this illusion that these people are just going to disappear off the face of the earth and not be contributing to society is absurd. And again, their research will yield, or it's not. We're not going to lose 350,000 jobs. It's just not true. And again, federal corporate income taxes. When these people get other jobs, that is going to stay the same. They're still going to be paying federal corporate income taxes at their new job. I mean, this is just bizarre that I gotta get going. It's bizarre that they're trying to convince you that these skilled people, these intelligent people, these scientists and researchers are just going to be useless to society and not be working. That's just absurd. They're going to find something else to do in a more relevant industry. That's it. I mean, you can take the dog out of the fight, but you can't take the fight out of the dog. That's it. This dog is going to go find something else to do, find something more productive to do. It's just bizarre. Okay, anyway. So anyways, to me, this is like conditioning. They're conditioning people to think a certain way. NASA's useful. We have all these studies. We doubled our money within 2 years of the program. Ended in 69. We doubled our money by 71. This program yielded $181 billion. NASA's returns are 33%. That we do $21.6 billion in sales, 350,000 mostly skilled jobs we create. You know, we pay all these federal income taxes. They're just beating you over the head with a bunch of propaganda. Like, I'm an idiot. I shouldn't be able to question so much of this. This should be so easy to explain. I shouldn't be able to make this many holes in it. I mean, the return on investment should be self-explanatory. If you can't explain it simply enough, then you don't understand it well enough. And they can't explain this simply. They can't justify this simply. They can't. I shouldn't be able to dissect this so easily. According to a 1992 Nature commentary, these 259 applications represent only 1% of an estimated 25,000 to 30,000 space program spin-offs. Think about that. According to a 1992 Nature commentary, these 259 applications represent only 1% of an estimated 25,000 to 30,000 space program spin-offs. Again, private sector profiting off of American taxpayer dollars research and development. That's what I read when I read that. Maybe I'm just a cynic. Maybe I just read too much into it. But again, that's only 1% of 25,000 to 30,000 space program spinoffs. They're not spinning off more technology and more stuff in the government. They're not. Where are these spin-offs ending up? Private sector, for profit. End of story. See, I ask too many questions. Do you understand what I'm saying? I ask way too many questions. A 2013 report prepared by the Tory Group for NASA showed that NASA invested nearly $5 billion in U.S. manufacturing in fiscal year 2012, with nearly $2 billion of that going to the technology sector. NASA also develops and commercializes technology, some of which can generate over $1 billion in revenue per year over multiple years. Again, what the French toast is happening? Another report done by a group showed that NASA invested nearly $5 billion in U.S. manufacturing in 2012. So listen to this. Taxpayers are giving the government money. The government is paying $5 billion to U.S. manufacturing in 1 year, in 2012. Again, why is that happening? Why is the federal government paying SpaceX? Have you sat down to process that? The federal government is taking money out of your household and giving it to a private company. Again, some people are probably okay with that. Some people are like, yeah, so what? No big deal. I don't get it. Some people aren't that way. Some people don't believe in a space program. Some people don't believe this is useful. I definitely don't think that the federal government should be hiring SpaceX to do all this for them. This should be space exploration should be private sector only. The federal government does not need to be involved in this, but they're going to hide behind national security. Until this thing topples over, they're going to hide behind national security for everything. Everything from foreverdom is going to be national security. That's it. That conversation is over. So basically, they spent that again. We don't even know how much they spent in total in the private sector. It just says $5 billion in U.S. manufacturing. So billions of other dollars went to the private sector in other ways. Says nearly $2 billion of that. So what is that? 40% of that money went to the technology sector. So again, contracting private sector. Why? Why are they using tax dollars to contract the private sector? If there's a need for it, the private sector will solve it. Government doesn't solve problems. That's not what the government does. You don't have to do a whole lot of research to figure that out. Oh man. Anyway, NASA also develops and commercializes technologies, some of which can generate over $1 billion in revenue per year over multiple years. Again, that's the most random number. They're just randomizing this information, but let me explain to you what that means to me when I read it. So of these $25,000 and $30,000 space spinoff programs, or program spinoffs, not spinoff programs, let me rephrase that, precision matters. 25,000 to 30,000 program spinoffs. Of these commercialized technologies, they can generate over $1 billion in revenue per year over multiple years. Again, why they're using $1 billion, I don't know right there, because whatever technology they're coming up with, whether it's WD-40 or whatever, using the number $1 billion, that means nothing. That means nothing. And it says some of these technologies. What are these technologies? Explain these technologies. What are these things being sold that generate billions of dollars a year in revenue over multiple years? And again, where is that money going? If NASA's making this money, where's this money going? Why are they taking taxpayer money and making money? This makes no sense, because the money's being made in the private sector. The government's doing the research and the private sector's profiting off of it. It's that simple. I mean, SpaceX is being subsidized by the government. I mean, is SpaceX doing the same thing as SpaceX? I mean, how is SpaceX funding itself? I mean, it has, if I remember correctly, they have like 800 employees. If you have, first of all, if you're not an employer, you have no idea how significant that is. but 800 employees, okay? Not to mention all their facilities and their technology. I mean, massive, massive, massive amounts of money. And this is all being taken out of Elon Musk's pocket. He's involved, okay, whatever. So where's all their money coming from? He can't just be doing that. He can't just be throwing money at this thing. That thing has to be making money. That R&D is coming up with technology, and that technology is being sold. It's funding itself. So where's NASA's money going? I mean, this is. Am I the only? Again, maybe I'm just cynical. Like, where's all this money going? And again, billions of dollars year over year. If it's generating this much revenue, where's this money going? Because the taxpayers are paying for the overhead. The taxpayers are paying for the overhead. So where's all this money going? It says it generates over $1 billion in revenue per year. If these things, over multiple years, if these things are generating in billions of dollars, again, there's 25 to 30,000 of them, no telling how much each one of them makes, but where's the money going? The overhead's already paid for. NASA's overhead's already paid for. So when something generates $1 billion in revenue, that's $1 billion in profit. Hello? I mean, oh man, I'm a mess. Okay. Where's all the money going? I don't get it. Private sector, right? Okay. In 2014, the American Helicopter Society criticized NASA and the government for reducing the annual rotorcraft budget from $50 million in 2000 to $23 million in 2013, impacting commercial opportunities. Again, NASA's taking money from taxpayers, giving it to the American Helicopter Society. Their budget gets cut and they complain about it because it's impacting commercial opportunities. I mean, I guess if you're getting billions or millions of dollars a year from the federal government and they stop giving it to you, you're probably going to whine about it. So I can see that. The 2017 Economic Impact Report prepared by NASA for their Small Business Innovation Research and Small Business Technology Transfer Awards found that for fiscal year 2016, these programs created 2,400 jobs, $474 million in economic output, and $57.3 million in fiscal impact with an initial investment of $172.9 million. Again, that makes no sense. It's basically saying it cut the budget, so it cost all these people their jobs. But again, these people are going to go work in other industries. They're not just jobless. I mean, I don't understand the thinking. These people aren't just going to be jobless. There's a vacuum in the market for research and development for technology. The government's no longer going to be in that space, so that space is available. Okay, here we go. Here we go. The United States Post Office, exact same thing. Now they say that taxpayers are not, there's no money in the federal budget for the USPS because it pays for itself. But we're still bailing it out, giving it money to keep it alive. We're loaning it money, essentially. Why? First of all, if the government was so good at it, there wouldn't be competition in that space in the private sector. But there is, because the government's not that good at handling it. And how is it the competition is better at it and makes money at it? So again, the USPS folds, guess what? That's going to create a vacuum. Those letters, all those stuff getting delivered doesn't go anywhere. That volume still exists. So these people are now going to go work in the private sector to deliver the same thing. And some people say, well, the FedEx and UPS they're not in this space that the USPS is in, because they don't carry letters and they don't carry, well, they will, because there'll be a vacuum in the market. Somebody's going to have to do it. And if they don't, somebody else will. Again, it'll be in the private sector. There's no third party. There's no one in between. That's why it's so expensive. That's why it's so expensive. That's why these government programs are so expensive. One is because there's wasteful spending, and two is because the layers of people it has to go through. I mean, perfect example is any Uber Eats or DoorDash. I mean, you can go to a restaurant and have a dinner for a family of four for $35, or you can order DoorDash and it's 90. I mean, it's that simple. And I forget who says it, but it's not that the government's too big, it's that it's too stupid. That's it. Government's not too big, it's too stupid. I mean, it's a bunch of wasteful jackwagons. I mean, it's just bizarre to me. The private sector, in almost every way, kicks the crap out of government bureaucracy, yet we ignore it. And now, the private sector, when it comes to space exploration and rockets, got surpassed. The private sector surpassed the government in a matter of 2 decades. Less than that, really. So the private sector did more for the space program in 2 decades than the federal government did in 60 years. You need to think about that. Same with Tesla, the car company. They did more with auto technology in 10 years, 20 years, than the automotive industry did in 60, in 100 almost. I mean, people really need to start asking themselves some questions here. Is the government really their friend? Is the government really on their side? Are they really looking out for you? Do you really believe they're looking out for you? Do you really think that it's the government's idea of where your money should go is more important than your idea of where it should go? I mean, this is just bizarre. I mean, city, state, county officials. I mean, these people make sense. Your local government makes sense. You need law and order. You need organization. You need policing. You need these things. The federal government is off the reservation. They are gone, man. They are gone. I mean, they got to put out just false information. I mean, this is bizarre. Oh, goodness. This video is way too long. I'm sorry. Okay, this is the last section, though, so maybe we'll get through it. I'm telling you, the federal government is not your friend. The federal government is not your friend. I'm fired up. Sorry. Okay. Public perception. The perceived national security threat. Bam, there it is. The perceived national security threat. Again, that's the carrot. That's the carrot. They're going to keep dangling that out there in front of you. Going to keep you chasing that national security. Anything. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 9/11, JFK, Russia, politicians' personal records, or I say personal records, they're what's going on behind closed door. It doesn't matter. Terrorist organizations, anything. National security, national security. That's their answer for everything. Everything. Coronavirus, national security. I mean, just, they will beat you over the head with national security till you die. Okay? The perceived, so they gotta throw that in there. Just like there was weapon of mass destruction. They gotta perceive the perceived national security rate. So it wasn't real. There wasn't a real national security threat. We know that. We know that. And they had to make sure that they don't get themselves in trouble here. The perceived national security threat. Oh, we thought there was a national security threat. posed by early Soviet leads in spaceflight, drove NASA's budget to its peak, both in real inflation adjusted dollars and in a percentage of the total federal budget, which is 4.41% in 1966. But the U.S. victory in the space race, landing men on the moon, erased the perceived threat, and NASA was unable to sustain political support for its vision of an even more ambitious space transportation system entailing reusable Earth to orbit shuttles, a permanent space station, lunar bases, and a manned mission to Mars. What in the snap are they talking about? You gonna make it back there? Good boy. That is so bizarre. But the U.S. victory in the space race, landing men on the moon, erased the perceived threat, which, again, landing on the moon erased the perceived threat of somebody beating us there, somebody getting there first. That was the perceived threat. No, somebody can't beat us there. Okay, here we go. I'm not even going to get into that. I'm not even going to get started on the moon landing. I'm not even going to go there. Erase the perceived threat. Okay, here we go. NASA was unable to sustain political support for its vision of an even more ambitious. So, after we landed on the moon, NASA was unable to sustain political support, even though they were still getting, what is equivalent to like $20 billion a year. But they didn't get political support for its vision to an even more ambitious space transportation system. Again, they're saying that basically there was not enough political support to get this money to do this. What are you talking about? You're getting $20 billion a year. So, but again, they're trying to downplay the amount of money they're getting. Oh, they just couldn't afford to do all this stuff. They wanted to do all this stuff, but they couldn't get political support. Space transportation system entailing reusable Earth to orbit shuttles. We wanted to so bad, but we couldn't get political support. It's the federal government's fault you don't have Earth to orbit shuttles, a permanent space station, lunar bases, and a manned mission to Mars. It's the politicians' fault we don't have this. That $19 billion isn't the reason. It's because we don't have political support. We don't have attention. This is so bizarre. Again, they're just trying to finesse you. I don't get why they're trying to finesse you into believing all this nonsense. Couldn't have political support. Like, what are you talking about? $19 billion a day? Or a day. You don't need, if you gave me $19 billion a year, I don't need political support. I don't need any political support. With $22.6 billion this year, plus $100 million from the coronavirus fiasco. I don't need political support with that kind of money. I don't. To help with public perception and to raise awareness regarding the widespread benefits of NASA-funded programs and technologies, NASA instituted the Spinoffs publication. Okay, so